Welcome to TopSpot40 Music Docuseries, where we bring the stories behind the music to life.
The first time I heard that low, rumbling voice roll across the airwaves like distant thunder, I knew I was listening to somebody who didn't just sing about life. He had wrestled it to the ground and still carried the bruises. That's the thing about Johnny Cash. He never sounded like he was performing for us. He sounded like he was confessing, testifying, and cracking jokes all at the same time. One of the stories I love most happened on a cold January day in 1968 inside Falsom Prison. Most entertainers wouldn't have gone near the place. Johnny not only showed up, he treated those men like they were family he hadn't seen in years. You can hear it on the record. When he growled out the opening lines of Falsom Prison Blues, the whole room exploded. These were lifers and hard cases, but for a few minutes they weren't prisoners anymore. They were just men hearing somebody tell their story out loud. He even joked with them between songs, that dry Arkansas humor cutting through the tension like a pocket knife. That concert didn't just give him a hit record. It reminded the whole world that Johnny Cash was the patron saint of the second chance, the man who believed no one was beyond redemption because he needed redeeming himself. And Lord knows he did. The pills had him by the throat for years. They kept him awake on those endless tours. Then they put him to sleep when the crowds went home. The addiction got so bad that one dark afternoon he drove his truck out to Nickajack Cave with every intention of never coming back out. He walked deep into that cave until his flashlight died, sat down, and waited for the end. But something, maybe the prayers June had been praying over him, maybe the stubborn faith his mama planted in him as a boy, wouldn't let him stay there. He stumbled out hours later, half dead, covered in mud, and decided to live. That's when June Carter really stepped into the story. She'd been circling his life for years, singing with him on the road, watching him destroy himself, and still somehow seeing the good man drowning underneath. People think their love was all romance and duets. It was a lot tougher than that. June was tough as hickory. She told him straight out that she loved him too much to watch him kill himself. And somehow that tough love worked where everything else had failed. In front of a live audience in 1968, right after singing Jackson, he got down on one knee and proposed, completely unplanned. June laughed that big, beautiful laugh of hers and said yes. From that moment on, they were a team. She kept him steady. He kept her laughing. Their house rang with gospel songs in the morning and kids running through the halls. It was messy and real, and it worked. There's another tale that always makes me smile. Early in his career, the Grand Ole Opry basically fired him. He was young, wild, and full of that restless energy that made his music dangerous. One night he got a little too rowdy, kicked out the footlights on that sacred stage, and they told him not to come back. Most singers would have been crushed. Johnny just looked at the suits and basically said, "Fine, I'll go where they actually need me." That decision sent him straight into the arms of the people who became his true audience. The truck drivers, the factory workers, the folks in prison, the ones who felt overlooked. He started wearing black every night not because it was dramatic, though it certainly was. He wore it, he said, for the poor and the hungry, for the prisoner and the sick. It was his uniform, and he wore it like a preacher wears a collar. Years later, when his voice had grown rough as gravel roads and his hands shook from Parkinson's, a young producer named Rick Rubin gave him one last glorious chapter. They sat together in Johnny's living room with just a guitar and that worn-out baritone. No band, no tricks, just truth. When he recorded Hurt, that old Nine Inch Nails song, something almost holy happened. A man in his 70s looked straight into the camera and sang about regret, about his failing body, about the crown of thorns he felt he wore. People who had never heard of Johnny Cash suddenly found themselves crying in their cars. It was as if he'd saved the most powerful sermon of his life for last. You hear that boom-chicka-boom rhythm he invented with Luther Perkins and Marshall Grant, one of the most distinctive sounds in all of American music, and you can't help but move. But it's the spaces between the notes where Johnny really worked his magic. The way he could sing a murder ballad and make you feel sorry for the killer. The way he could deliver a gospel song and make believers out of skeptics. The way he could turn a simple train song into a metaphor for life rushing past us all. That's what I hope you take away from his music. Not just the hits you already know, but the man behind them. The Air Force veteran who taught himself guitar by listening to the radio. The father who adored his children even when the road pulled him away. The husband who found his salvation in a woman named June. The friend who stood up for Native American rights when it wasn't popular. The sinner who never claimed to be a saint. When you listen to Johnny Cash, you're sitting down with someone who understands that life will break your heart and your body, but it doesn't get the final word. His voice still feels like a hand on your shoulder saying, "I've been where you are, friend. Keep going." And in a world that moves too fast and forgets too easily, that voice, raw, honest, and full of hard-won grace, matters now more than ever. Put on one of his records tonight. Turn it up a little. Let that deep baritone roll over you like a freight train that knows exactly where it's going. I promise you'll feel better for it. We all do.
Thank you for joining us for TopSpot40 Music Docuseries. Discover all the stories behind the music at TopSpot40.com. Until next time, keep the music playing.